Look, I have been very, very clear about this from the beginning. I think we should abide by the CDC guidelines. I am a law and order guy. All right, that's just the way I am. And I think that the guidelines have come that the president put out, the CDC, have been reasonable. I supported, we went to the 15 days and then extended it. I supported that. And I think the president has been messaging, communicating in the last few weeks that, look, it's time to begin easing back and allowing society to open again. Now, some governors are having a hard time doing that. I think it's time that they begin to back off because I think we've got to trust the American people to be able to make choices for themselves. I think that, look, if there's risk, you don't want to go out, don't go out. But I don't think you have to have someone to tell you to stay at home. Now, I'm not a good example of this because I don't go out to restaurants. I eat at home. My wife is a great cook. I love to eat her food. It's healthier, tastes better. I don't go to sporting events. That's not my thing. I go to church. I go ride my bike, spend time with my family. So, this hasn't been that disruptive for our family. But I think people need to be able to make their choices. I think churches are going to have to adapt to make sure they're safe environments and they're communicating to their congregants that it's safe to come in. They're going to have to adapt their policies to encourage those in high-risk age categories or health categories to stay home and participate in another way, either online or maybe have drive-in services or separate services for the elderly or for those in high-risk categories. I mean, they're going to figure that out. But the officials need to let them do that. Now, joining me now to talk more about this is because we've heard different perspectives. We've heard from congressmen that are a part of the president's Reopening America committee. We've heard from a congressman who's a doctor. We've heard from a pollster. But I want to talk now to a former mayor of the city of Cincinnati, former Secretary of State of Ohio, and a member of the FRC team, and that is my good friend Ken Blackwell. Ken, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Hey, Tony, good to be with you, sir.
All right. I don't think this is real complicated. I mean, I think we took some initial, what even the president said, drastic steps to try to flatten the curve. I think it's worked. I mean, we've only seen, it's significant, about 45,000 deaths, but it could have been much worse. In fact, the projections were that we were going to possibly reach 200,000. So it's worked, but now it's time to adopt a different chapter write a new chapter in this. Is it not?
Yes, it is, Tony. And I think we ought to start with the fact and push back on this, the left's desire to expand the role of government in our lives in the midst of this pandemic. What we want is to deepen faith, strengthen families, and advance liberty, not the dependency on government. And as you and I, who have been elected officials, we know that God is the provider of our liberty, the family is the incubator, and a very solid principle of subsidiarity is a principle of social organization that holds that, social and political issues and decisions should be dealt with first by the individual and the family, then by local governments, that for the most part are at the point of providing services, then state government and then the federal government. So as a mayor, we first have to have trust in God, faith in families, and we have to celebrate freedom. The strategy of tapping back and harnessing individual liberty and freedom will eventually erode the trust of the people. We have to trust them as leaders. But you nailed it. We have to understand that the American people, are smart people. We don't hide in the midst of a crisis. We push back intelligently against it. We know what we have to do, but it's now time to open up the society. It's not an either or. It's not a public health strategy versus an economic strategy. We actually know that if we stay, away from reopening, our society, our country, that what we will do is just crash our economy and create also the economic havoc that has associated with it death and misery. So we need an intelligent way of pushing back. It has to be measured. It has to be consistent with what we know that works.
Right. Well, I think the key component that you mentioned is you have to trust the people. Because if if you don't trust the people, your only option is tyranny.
Absolutely. And, we understand from an economic standpoint all the notions of demand disruption and supply disruption. We know from a public health situation that it's important to develop herd immunity and to develop vaccines and treatments that can mitigate the spread of the crime and to take great social action steps to accomplish those ends. But at the end of the day, it is no accident why we are the most prosperous and the freest constitutional republic in the history of the world. It is because we, in fact, cherish liberty and we trust the people.
You mentioned herd immunity. That requires that we get out and we move about. My concern is if some of these, and I see a kind of I mentioned this earlier with Andy Biggs. My observation, it's casual. It could be wrong. I'm speaking with broad language here, but I've seen the Republican governors seem to take a similar approach that President Trump has taken. Guidance, not heavy-handed, eager to back off and allow people to make decisions for themselves. The Democrats, not so much so. And so if we don't, we want this herd immunity, that means people have to congregate, move around, and build up the immunity. But I'm going to tell you, gradually. If we don't get it, I think we're on the verge of a stampede because I think people are tired of this heavy-handed of government. I mean, it's time to begin easing back into opening up society and doing what you just said, balancing both the health risk and the economic and social opportunities that we have as Americans to be free and make our own decisions.
Right. And I think leaders have to inspire hope. And that's one of the things that I love about this president. He inspires hope. He is not a defeatist. And we know that what has made us a great economic force is that we have the freedom and the innovation to create opportunities. Tony, you and I talk about this all the time. There's this one model that wants to expand the welfare state. There's another model that wants to create an opportunity society. America is at its best when it is, in fact, following that model of creating an opportunity society. And leaders have to begin to bring people together.
Right.
And so those three things, inspire hope, create opportunity, and bring people together, that's what our president is doing.
And allowing creativity. I mean, look how he has dealt with this crisis. Not only is he, given power back to the states, he's given resources and guidance to make decisions, but he's removed regulations to allow the private sector to do its best work in solving our problems. He doesn't see government as the solution to everything. That's where I see the disconnect between the two major political parties, because the blue states, the Democratic states, tend to want to control all power because they see government as really the only one that can solve problems. They don't have confidence in the people. And I'm saying we've got to allow people, businesses, to get back into this new world, this post-corona world, and create an environment that is conducive to doing business. Churches are going to have to convince people it's safe to come in. So I think people can handle it from here as government begins to back off and give more freedom.
Absolutely. And Tony, I'm in your choir. God is the provider of our liberty, and the family is the incubator of our liberty. And we are a people that enjoys liberty and the fruits of that liberty, and that is an expanding economy and the creation of opportunity. We cannot go into the corner and wring our hands and be fearful.
No.
That's not the American way.
But let me ask you, do you think that there are some in the media that are trying to do just that. Because I read these stories, like I'm just going to read you an AP story from today. It says the outbreak has infected over 2.5 million people and killed about 180,000 around the world, including more than 45,000 in the United States, according to a tally compiled by Johns Hopkins University from official government figures, though the true numbers are believed to be far higher. I mean, that's the kind of stuff they insert in there. Oh, really? It's more than that? I mean, just trying to scare people.
Right. And one of the things I am part of the leadership council of a coalition, of the Coalition to Save Our Country. And basically what I've said into that discussion is that this is about sensible risk management. Mm-hmm. Tony, every day that we're alive, we have to work our way through a series of risks, whether it's wearing seat belts, whether it's crossing in the crosswalk. I mean, there are actions that we take every day to reduce or mitigate risk. That's what we're talking about. Well, life is not risk-free. Yeah. It is about smartly managing those risks. And what happens is that some in the media try to scare the American people into abandoning the model that has made us, again, the freest and most prosperous society in all of human history, and out of fear to give up our liberty and become humanoids and subjects.
Yeah.
We are citizens of the United States, and we are smart.
Yeah, and we have to take responsibility. You go back to the family unit, and you go back to that basic trust in God. You look at that dollar bill. What does it say? In God we trust.
We trust.
Absolutely. And that is the essence. It's the essence of what makes America an exceptional nation. I do appreciate the fact, and I've talked about this all week on the program, about how the president has used a federalism approach to this.
That's right.
And that he hasn't expanded government with new agencies. We don't have the coronavirus agency, or some new agency that's going to, shepherd this thing through that will never go away. And, he has faith and confidence in the American people. When I talked to him last week on a call, I encouraged him to encourage governors to give more leeway and freedom to churches to get back open again by best practices in securing their facilities so people can come in. People's behavior will be altered by this, no question about it. But it's now time, in my view, and I'm being repetitive intentionally, it is time for government to begin to back off and allow people to make those best choices for them, and to allow those community institutions that you talked about to adapt to this new world. It's time. It's time.
Absolutely, Tony. And the other thing that we know is that throughout the scriptures, we are told, be unafraid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be unafraid.
Absolutely right. And those are good words to end on. Ken Blackwell, as always, my friend, great to have you on the program today.
Thanks, Tony.
And Ken, before you leave, I want you to know this: the virus is not going to affect our hunt in the fall. Okay.
There you go, brother.
All right. Okay.
All
right. Ken Blackwell. So good to have him on the program, and no fear, absolutely no reason to be fearful. This is a time, yes, of great challenge, difficulty. But look, the Lord's promises are true. And he has told us to be anxious for nothing, but by prayer, supplication with thanksgiving, let our requests be made known unto him. And he's not given us a spirit of fear, but of love and of sound mind. And so don't be fearful. Be confident. Be careful and use good judgment. I mean, this is a real virus, but we don't have to be afraid. Just need to use hand sanitizer, wash your hands, keep your distance. If you're older or at a health risk, take care of yourself. But you can do that. All right, here's the poll results very quickly. Wrapping up, 96% said yes, It's time. It's time. 4% said no. All right, folks, I leave you with this once again. Until next time, I leave you with the encouraging words of the Apostle Paul when he says, you've done everything you can do when you've prayed, when you've prepared, and when you have taken your stand. By all means, keep standing. Just make sure it's 6 feet apart.